How do you define the Attorney General's role in controlling illegal immigration in Missouri?
The Attorney General's role, I think there's a very real role in dealing with employers who hire knowingly or willfully illegal immigrants. I think that there's also a very real role in the Attorney General's office, because we spend a lot of time talking about sort of law and order things, but their responsibilities in the Attorney General's office to deal with our labor and industrial relations laws and workplace rules and classification of employees. We dealt with that this year in the illegal immigration bill that we passed. And those are very, very important enforcement activities that need to be undertaken by the Attorney General's office. I think that's the main role. In our legislation this year, we've allowed our highway patrolmen and others to stop the catch and release program. They can actually detain people that they believe have probable cause to believe they're illegal until immigration and naturalization can get involved. There's other things that were part of that legislation, but I think that's really what the role, as I understand, of the Attorney General's office, and to be there willing and able to defend the actions of the legislature. It is likely at some point, as has happened in other states, that this law will be challenged. I believe we passed a law that passes United States constitutional muster, and so I think we are in good position there, but somebody who's going to have a problem under this lose tax credits or that sort of thing, and that's enforced, they're going to challenge it. And I certainly, as a supporter of it, am going to be a very zealous advocate for seeing that law is upheld.
Thank you, Senator Koster.
The Attorney General has a significant role in this. We've got this problem of unscrupulous employers who are paying basically slave wages to a vulnerable workforce and forcing Missouri workers out of the system. In 2007, along with Senator Tim Green, I wrote Senate Bill 348, which is nearly identical to the bill that was passed this past year. When I transferred parties, I forewent the opportunity to carry that legislation to success, but the emphasis on the Homeland Security's E-Verify system, which causes employers to raise their game and to do strict scrutiny on the federal I-9 forms around the state, is now part of Missouri law. The Attorney General is going to have two outlets to exercise his authority. One is through the Department of Labor in cranking down on this E-Verify system and making sure that employers no longer turn their head to this issue. And what we need over at the Department of Labor is more investigators to be out on the job sites, making sure that employers are complying with this program. The other, and perhaps the more insidious of the two problems, is the problem of paying undocumented workers as independent contractors with 1099s on the job site, basically cash under the table. Whenever an employer does that, they are breaking the tax laws of this state, and my hope is that Attorney General Nixon will, for the first time in 4 years, turn back on the Department of Labor and turn on the Department of Revenue in terms of investigating this type of 1099 violation and allowing the government to go after these employers who are not just breaking the law but cheating the tax system.
Thank you. The next question comes from Linda Geist and goes first to Senator Koster.
What has the current Attorney General, Jay Nixon, done while in office that you would like to see continued?
Well, certainly the no-call list has been a hallmark. Are you just asking me what aspects we should continue?
Some of your favorites.
A list of favorites. Okay, the no-call list has been very successful. His entire emphasis on consumer enforcement, I think, has been a real success. And I think that he's done a good job in environmental prosecution. Can I keep going and give you what I think we should improve? Sure. Okay. I think we need to take that consumer protection and ramp it up a level. Specifically, it's time to crank down on Medicaid fraud. Medicaid fraud is a theft out of the state's treasury that amounts to approximately $600 million a year. Enough money to fund the entire University of Missouri system on all 4 campuses. There is wide expert agreement on that. Taking Medicaid fraud prosecution, an effort that I spearheaded in the General Assembly in 2006, and making it priority number 1 of the next Attorney General's office is the best thing that we can do to up the ante broadly in the consumer protection arena.
Senator Gibbons.
I think by all accounts, and from traveling around the state and learning from a lot of people, and is asking open-ended questions. What's been good about the Attorney General's office? What could stand some improvement? Universally, he gets high marks for his efforts on behalf of Missourians on defending our water rights on the Missouri River. While there is intense hostility between the Department of Natural Resources and the Attorney General over a whole host, a whole host of issues, this is one point of substantial agreement. And it's extraordinarily important, and it's something that I will continue. And the reason it's so important is that it is virtually a life and death issue for the people of Missouri, as contrasted with recreational opportunities for the upriver states. For us, approximately 3 million people in our state draw their drinking water out of the Missouri River watershed. It's important to agriculture, it's important to transportation. The Missouri is actually the dominant river in the Mississippi, and as it comes into the Mississippi, it really affects navigation from St. Louis to Caruthersville. So it's I think that's something that's been very good. The things I want to change are things that I've talked about earlier. The Cyber Crimes Task Force, to make sure that we are ensuring that our crime victims feel safe and secure in coming forward and seeking justice. To have a better relationship, in fact, a relationship, but much better relationship with local prosecutors and law enforcement that just hasn't been there. During the current Attorney General's tenure, there are various times that he sought to have more prosecutorial authority in the Attorney General's office. I don't think that's necessary, and it's something we can do better on.
Okay, the next question comes from Sarah Palmer and goes first to Senator Gibbons.
You both promised to protect Missouri's families. Missouri's tremendous outdoor resources are arguably one of the most important assets it offers to people who live here. How would you preserve the state's natural areas and enforce environmental standards and regulations?
Well, I think that the Department of Natural Resources in Missouri, and also the EPA, there is a jurisdiction given to the Attorney General to enforce those environmental laws and to enforce the decisions made by the Department of Natural Resources. And I think as Attorney General, your obligation is to aggressively go out there and do that. I don't think I've been in the policy-making role for 22 years between City Council, State Representative, and the State Senate. This is not a policy-making role. This is a role to enforce and effectively enforce the laws of the state. And so I don't know specifically what you might be asking, but as a general proposition, if I'm the Attorney General, I will pursue those aggressively. I think these natural areas are important to the people in our state. Again, it's something that people have voted for, taxpayers have paid for, and I think that those issues are an important aspect and a very substantial responsibility in the Attorney General's office.
Senator Koster.
We do have something of a crisis in the state on this, not in specific pollution sites, but in a general policy that has been allowed to become an intractable knot in Jefferson City. Right now, the Department of Natural Resources is widely seen, I think, in the state of Missouri as not doing an effective enough job in carrying out their mission. That is why local communities have taken the power into their own hands by passing these health ordinances around the state that have become an enormous conflict with the agricultural community. We looked into the CAFO issue, and I sponsored legislation on the CAFO issue in 2007, I guess. And what we found is that the environmental prosecution in the state, particularly from the executive branch, has fallen too low. And we proposed about 25 new procedures to lift up the environmental standards in the state. Larger setbacks from, in the agricultural community, for example, larger setbacks from bodies of water, from running rivers, from other landowners, from historical sites, from parks, in order to lift up our environmental system in the state. The Attorney General, the next Attorney General, needs to take a lead working with the legislature to move the Department of Natural Resources forward again. Because, to be candid, I think that they have fallen so far behind the times that local communities are beginning to take this power into their own hands, and it's appropriate for the Attorney General, who does have this authority, to get in and to assist in moving them forward.